Hi, it's Clover. I am sorry I have been so bad about posting videos. As you can see, my whole 12 followers on YouTube, I'm better at writing blog posts than I am speaking about them on YouTube because being on YouTube makes me uncomfortable because it's a little bit more vulnerable, but I think it's a really good practice in vulnerability and also just a really nice way of kind of brain dumping on the topics that I talk about instead of just showing the polished version that comes in a blog post. So, which, sometimes are a little bit more polished at least than this because I don't really edit these videos, as you can probably tell. But anyway, I started this Overcoming Dating Anxiety series. I guess we can call it a series. I got 2 whole videos out before I took a 3-week hiatus. I think it's at least 3 weeks since I did my last video. But in the last 3 weeks, things have been really weird. Things have gotten a little crazy. I was promoted at work, which was awesome, but it's giving me a little bit less time to dedicate to things like Clover. So I'm kind of like figuring out how to establish balance again, while also doing things like dating and spending time with friends and doing fun things outside of freelancing and Clover and all that good stuff, which, Clover is like the favorite thing that I do, the best thing that I do. So it was making me anxious that I wasn't dedicating enough time to it. And I'm ready to stop pushing my own needs aside. And when I say needs, I really mean doing this stuff for other things. So working on it, it's always a work in progress with balance, but we will see. This is Sunday, May 12th, and so I'm trying again. And I think that if you've been following Clover for a while, you know my attempt and my never-ending journey to find balance is a constant reset. So here's reset 1,000,006. So anyway, I wanted to continue the conversation on overcoming dating anxiety because I think that overcoming dating anxiety is very similar to overcoming anxiety, but I think it's something that is hard to talk about because a lot of it deals with how we feel towards ourselves. And in my last video, I talked about identifying whether or not the anxiety that I felt was coming from a place of trauma and self-sabotage, or if it was coming from a place of gut instinct, where your gut is telling you to run. And sometimes figuring out which one it is can be a little bit difficult, so I talk about that in my last video. So if you're curious on that, go check it out. But more importantly, this video is my number 1 step to overcoming dating anxiety. And it's actually also something I've been struggling with lately is identifying what it is I feel when I shut down. Sometimes my brain, when I get bad news or things that are disturbing or stressful, instead of coming up with an emotion, I kind of just shut down. And I received some bad news this week, or I don't know if bad news is the right word for it, but some powerful news this week that has to do with my personal life. And my reaction to it was very numb. And I knew I was doing the numbing thing where I couldn't allow myself and didn't make space for myself to feel. And I decided to meditate on it and go to a place that gave me space to feel what I was feeling and identify what I felt. And what I realized is it's very similar to step number 1 in overcoming dating anxiety. So I'm going to share that and also explain how it came up for me in identifying how I felt. So my number 1 step in overcoming dating anxiety is identifying where the anxiety is coming from. And I know that probably sounds super basic and like, oh, duh, of course, like, tell me what's something I don't know. But in the same way that I sometimes don't know where my feelings are coming from, or I don't know how I feel, sometimes I think I know what the anxiety is coming from, but I don't actually until I focus on it and allow myself to feel it. And so one of the ways that I do that is if I've identified that I'm feeling anxious and I allow myself to feel anxious, there's a couple of different ways to identify where the anxiety is coming from, but the most powerful has been either writing about it and just like free flow writing about it until the feels come out and the things I didn't know that I was feeling come out. And it's always really revealing of my mental state. But that's huge for me. But another way that has even been bigger and more fruitful in terms of not only overcoming dating anxiety, but also in, sorry, I'm just like picking off some goo off of my desk. I don't know where it came from, but it's kind of gross looking. In case you were wondering what Clover lives like. I live covered in goo, apparently. So anyway, I've been getting into meditation a little bit more and more, and I'm not very good at it, but it's been the most powerful thing for me in identifying these things that I'm working on. And when I have dating anxiety, I have started doing a meditation where I focus on my wise self. And your wise self is the part of you that knows. It's the part of you that sees beyond all of the bullshit and is the calming voice telling you to do what you need to do in order to be who you want to be or handle a situation in a way that you need to. And I don't always act on my wise self. In fact, a lot of the times I don't, because sometimes thinking about it from that perspective takes an extra second or two of thinking and breathing and being in the moment and figuring out what that is. And sometimes it's easier for me to just react instead of thinking about how I want to act. So the wise self is this inner peace within myself that it's been helpful for me to give that inner peace and inner knowing a form. My form is very dramatic. She's like a warrior goddess. So, super simple. But it's really helpful in scenarios where I am feeling anxiety, because what I do is I basically call upon my wise self and I say, welcome and enter into this room with me and sit here with me and sit here with the anxiety that I'm feeling. And I also find it really helpful to give my anxiety a character, I guess. And in the instance of the character that I envision when I have dating anxiety, my character is usually, at least lately, has been this little girl version of myself. And she's like 7, and for some reason she's always playing with like a truck, which I never really played with trucks as a kid, so I'm not sure where that comes from. But she's kind of just like sitting there, and she's sad, and she's just kind of withdrawn. And when my wise self comes into the room, my wise self just says, "What's going on? What's wrong?" And we'll call the little girl part of me Chloe, and the wise self Bear, because I think that is probably accurate in that my bear version of myself is probably my most wise self. But anyway, when I do the meditation, Bear comes into the room, the wise self, and she says, "What's going on, Chloe?" And almost immediately, Chloe decides to like climb into Bear's lap and just is looking. She's just like looking for comfort and looking for someone to hold her and tell her it's going to be okay. And Bear just kind of listens. Chloe starts talking, and she says, "I don't want to do this anymore. I don't want to keep having feelings for people that turn into nothing. I don't want to keep getting my hopes up only to get them turned down. I don't want to keep being vulnerable with the wrong people. I'm tired. I don't want to do this anymore." And Bear just kind of like nods her head. And she's like, I know you don't. And I know you're tired. And that's okay. And Chloe just keeps going, "I'm so tired. I don't want to do this anymore. Are we always going to be alone? Like, is this always going to be what it is for us? And Bear just kind of says, you're not alone. You have me, and you're always going to have me, and I'm always going to be here for you. But you're not alone. And Chloe's kind of like, well, that's what you're supposed to say. But I don't want to do this anymore. And Bear just kind of nods her head, just like, I know you don't. But look at how far you've come. Look at all of the things that you're doing. And look at all the things you're learning and all of the things that have come from this that are good and helping other people too. You're doing it. You're doing your life, and you're doing it right, and you're doing it for you. And Chloe's just kind of like, yeah, thanks, I guess. But that meditation probably sounds like I'm a crazy person who just like talks to myself, but it's really helpful for me because it helps me realize it's literally my insecurity talking to me and saying what it is I need. And the anxiety comes from this place of feeling like maybe I'm not lovable, and maybe this is how it's always going to be. And the wise part of myself knows that that's okay, even if that's true. That I love me, and I love my life, and even if that means living it alone in order to live how I want to live, that's okay. And that's preferred if the other option is turning into somebody I'm not in order to be with somebody who I don't need. So it's been really helpful for me to do that, not just when it comes to dating anxiety. And earlier this week when I got the news that I'm not going to really talk about, but I'll tell you, I numbed up to it completely and even had someone say, you're not really responding to this in a way that's appropriate. Like, this is strange. I kind of knew that I was clearly blocked. When I tried to do EMDR therapy on it, I was still blocked. And my therapist is like, we got to work through this because your mind's not letting you go there. And so I did my own meditation on it, and it was very similar. I brought my wise self into my room, and I thought, how are you feeling? And all of a sudden, this huge rush of grief and terror and anxiety just like ripped across me. And my little girl self, but a different version of my little girl self, came through and was just like, I don't want to be left alone, and I don't want to be abandoned. And there are a lot of other things, but I don't want to necessarily talk about it yet because it's something I'm still working through. But it really helped me realize what I was feeling, and it was cathartic in a way because I was able to work through at least that component just by doing a little bit of meditation. And because of it, I was able to talk to somebody close to me and explain how I was feeling. And that made me feel better. So I'm still processing it and still trying to figure out what to do with this information. But both in dating and in life, this kind of visualization meditation has been helping me a lot, especially when I shut down, or especially when I have this extreme emotion that I don't really know how to process or deal with. So I'll leave some links to finding your wise self below. I know it sounds super hippy-dippy, but sometimes what we need is super hippy-dippy. So thank you for watching. I'll pretend that I will do a better job at YouTubing, but I make no actual promises. So thanks for watching, and thanks for coming back. Bye.